Sixers fans, you are in a very, very good spot, man. Sixers just the other day just took game 2 in Boston and all of a sudden has made this series a legitimate series. By the time this video goes up, I don't think they'll have played yet. Hopefully I'm getting this video out before game 3. But now we're in a pivotal game 3 and then going into a pivotal game 4 for Philadelphia to take all the momentum and potentially win this series and upset the Boston Celtics in the first round. Game 1 was a kind of like how I feel like most people thought it was going to be. Sixers poor shooting, the Celtics defensive switchability was able to bother them. The Celtics just 3-point making, which is, just doing what it usually does. Offensive rebounding, all that stuff. While game 2 kind of felt like how this series could go if the Sixers could really lock in. How this series could go if the Sixers have things going for them. Shots are falling. Tyrese Maxey's clutch moments. VJ Edgecombe being honestly the best rookie in the league. Paul George just being instant offense. Andre Drummond being great. Kelly Oubre, Dominic Barlow being really great wings, honestly, in their minutes. Stuff like that. So it's like watching the Sixers this year, it was always so weird because you saw the potential. You saw how good they could be. You saw how they would compete with even the best of teams this year, but then they would also lose games. They would drop all their games to the Hawks, which put them in a situation where now they have to play the Celtics in the first round, or, just losing games that they really shouldn't have been losing, right? Coaching malpractice. I've given Nick Nurse too much shit at this point. It doesn't change anything. Like injuries, especially because of how much mileage you're putting on your players, how many minutes they played, stuff like that. So kind of having them in this position is amazing, especially with Embiid being changed from out to doubtful. So now we're looking at a day-to-day thing. Joel Embiid could potentially be back by game 4 or game 5, maybe, hopefully, right? And all of a sudden it's hey, if the Sixers can if they can at least split their home series right now and go back into Boston with a 2-2 series, and Joel Embiid can be back by that point, there's a real possibility that they just outright win the series, right? And obviously, you want them to win both home games, and then you're up 3-1 and you should just win the series anyways after that point. But even Sixers fans will tell you you can't hope to beat Boston 3 games in a row. That doesn't happen. Boston's too good of a team. They're too well coached. Their shooting is too hot or cold. Well, not too hot or cold. It's just if they catch fire, you're not really gonna beat them, right? So looking at it like that, it's man, all of a sudden this is a legitimate series, defensively the Sixers have looked great. I think, honestly, yeah, they've had their issues rebounding, but outside of that, defensively, they've looked like they can really hold up, right? Jaylen Brown had a terrific game last night, but nobody else really did, and the Sixers were able to match that, and they seemed like they were ready to match the Celtics runs a lot too. I think that's a big part of what makes these top tier teams so good, especially when I look at the Celtics and the Thunder. It's that ability to just randomly go on a run that puts you up by 20. And then all of a sudden, teams are in holes that they can't really get out of. But it felt like every time the Celtics were trying to build up momentum to go on that run, the Sixers will respond right back, Whether it's Paul George hitting timely jumpers, VJ Edgecombe being on absolute heater, or we saw when Tyrese Maxey had 8 straight points in the big moment. It's so funny to look at. Because throughout the entire Embiid era, throughout the entire process era, you see all these teams that this team puts together, and it feels like this is probably the best team that they've put together, and this is the one that I feel like most people didn't have that high of expectations for, coming into the season at least. With how bad last season went, obviously, to the point they got the 3rd pick in the draft, to how Embiid's injuries are just piling up on and on with him. And I made a video talking about how he's so unlucky, and it just seems like his luck just cannot get better. And it sucks too. It sucks to see. It sucks to see because a player that talented, I've said this before, but I really do think at his peak and when without any injuries, I do think that's like a top 10 peak of all time, which is crazy to say, but like you look at how good he was whenever he was like fully healthy. Like people don't talk about it, but his athleticism was a really big part of his game. It was a big part of why he's able to be such a defensive monster. So, and you can even see now, even when he is on the floor, he doesn't have that same burst anymore. Like he can't jump like that. So it always sucks to see, but like this Sixers team with Joel Embiid as their primary center is like completely different in a good way. Defensively, it's like a lot better. Offensively, it's nowhere near as stagnant at times. And, and then you cut down any of those Adam Bona minutes, I like him, but I don't think he's a good enough center, at least, especially not for the playoffs, Andre Drummond's look great. So you could have those Andre Drummond minutes be like your backup minutes, and all of a sudden it's like, this team looks damn near unbeatable, right? Because I always felt like that was a little scary with like how their guard rotation and their big man rotation is. I think their wings look fine right now, but I think their big man rotation is a little iffy without Embiid out there. So you have Embiid there, you have Paul George, Kelly Oubre, VJ, Tyrese Maxey, and then you'd have like Dominic Barlow and Andre Drummond coming right off the bench, Justin Edwards, who's looked good in his minutes, and all of a sudden this team looks way better than it did before, so, and Quentin Grimes, obviously. So I just like look at this Sixers team and I really think that there is a chance, right? I don't want to sit there and say, oh yeah, Sixers got this in the bag, because this Celtics team is still probably the best team in the East, right? They're still like that good. This is still very much a really well coached Celtics team. Jason Tatum's a great coming back from injury. Jaylen Brown's having a career year. Like he's been terrific. Derek White's been off shooting wise, but like, he's always a really good player. So you can't count on good players just being bad at shooting to win games, right? Keita has been like, honestly, he should get more love for most improved. Like he went from like cut player fighting for minutes from the G League to being a legitimate starting center on a playoff team, and not just a playoff team, a championship contender team, by the way. You see the Celtics team, you see they have Barnhizer and Peyton Pritchard. Who else do they have now? Hauser, Luka Garza, Nikola Vucevic. Like, this is a deep team. This is a really good Celtics team. So the fact that the Sixers can even make this a series is very telling too. It's very telling. I'd be very excited if I'm a Sixers fan. It's like I can tell. It's like it's always like hard to have faith in a team that just seems so unlucky. Seems like the worst that could happen always happens to them. But I feel like if there's a year for them to finally break that curse and finally make the push to at least the Eastern Conference Finals, this is the year, The Knicks look bad, right? The Cavs, like, they're beatable. The Pistons, I think, are beatable. Like, I think this East isn't as strong as people say it is. I think it's a good conference right now, but I don't think it's there's nobody in the East that you look at and you're like, oh man, they're unbeatable. Like, there's no beating them aside from a miracle, right? Like, yeah, obviously you'll might have that feeling when you get to the finals and you have to play against one of those top two teams in the West, but like, I think that they have a real chance. I really do. And I just really wanted to talk about the Sixers today. I felt like I kind of had to get a video out about them. They've been great. They've been really good. And, you just hope Joel Embiid can come back and be like at least 70% of him. Because 70% of him is way better than anything else Sixers have at big man. And that's not a fault against Andre Drummond or anything. It's just Joel Embiid is that good. Having that type of much more consistent shooting. The defense is still better, honestly. The rebounding, I think, will take a hit, but the rebounding has never been a big strength for the Sixers. They've always been a very bad offensive rebounding team. Not offensive, but a rebounding team, period, honestly. They've never been good at that, So, to kind of have this team, you could have like that 5-out, you could have Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid, dribble handoffs, pick and rolls. You can still have Paul George ISO plays. You can still have VJ Edgecombe get his shots in. Obviously you don't want to take too many shots from Tyrese Maxey and VJ, but I think it adds a much more of a dynamic to this offense, and you let Tyrese Maxey get into more of his strengths more, because I do feel like he's much better when you're allowing him to be, more of a off-ball type of guy, when he isn't forced to like try and create his own shot against set defenses, because I feel like that's not really a strength of his. And that's nothing against him, but that's just not in his bag like that. He's much more effective when you allow him to come off screens and you allow him to catch it on movement. Like, I would much rather see the Sixers use him in like a Steph Curry type of way, where he's like running around a lot, using his like super speed to like get around screens and catch it and shoot off the dribble, because he's got a very quick release, and then obviously he's a terrific shooter from anywhere on the floor. He's got a mid-range game too, so he can like use that a lot. Obviously he can get to the rim at will, and he's very good at adjusting mid-air. So, I think he would work really well coming off of that. So, you're super hopeful for the Sixers. I think there's a chance, man. It's not a crazy chance, it's not a super high chance, but there's a chance, man. Faith, hope, delusion, whatever you want to call it. Sixers in 6 games. We're here. But thank you guys for watching or listening, as always. Hope you guys tune in next time, and I'll see y'all later.